Hey everyone, welcome to Keto and Crime Catch Up. See how many people, see if people pop in here in a minute. Give everybody a little while to pop in. Hopefully people will pop in. I'm not here all by my lonesome. If you're here, say hello. Hello. If you're here, I realize that the 𝐷eMom is also streaming. I did not realize that when I scheduled it, so I apologize. But if you're here, hey Julie, how are you? How are things going? Got a few more coming in. Hey Flame. Hey Cats. How is everyone? How are you on this fine last Friday in April? How are things over in England tonight, Flame? How's the weather over there? Is it hot? Hey everyone. Hey. And y'all, I do apologize. Hey Angela, I'm doing great. I do apologize. I did not realize when I scheduled that the 𝐷eMom was also streaming at the same time. I never try to conflict with her or Trisha or Amy or any of the channels that I'm good friends with. I try never to conflict. I didn't realize she was streaming, so I apologize for that. Like, cold. Wow. I didn't realize. Well, I guess I've seen enough movies. I should realize that England gets kind of cold. Well, all right. Today we're just going to do a little crime wrap up of, updates from cases that have broken in the last couple of weeks. First, let's talk about the one that everybody's always, well, not the one that everyone's talking about, the one in my corner of YouTube that everyone talks about, and that's Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow. I've already done a video on this, but I will just recap that Lori did waive her right, did not waive her did not waive her right to a speedy trial. And I accidentally said fair trial when I meant speedy, even though I corrected it in text. And I had several people write me a new one saying that was incorrect, even though I corrected it. No, I don't think any of them were subscribers, just random watchers. But yes, I did accidentally say that she waived her right to a fair trial when I meant speedy, and I corrected it in the screen, in the text. But that means that by law, by Idaho law, they have now until October 22nd to get her trial rolling. So that's the reason I said the trial will be tentatively in October of this year. And the interesting thing is that the petition to sever was severed later that same week. The petition that Chad's defense attorney had filed to sever the two trials, that was denied. But of course, Chad's already been set for January of next year. And now, because she did not waive her right to a speedy trial, hers must now happen by October of this year. So in a way, I think that is her sneaky way of trying to get the trials severed or moved, just a whole lot of Lori Vallow manipulation. Why does that surprise me? It doesn't, but more of that going on. And I'm just interested to what the consensus is. Do you think there's trouble in paradise between Lori and Chad? Do you think they're on the rocks, or they're just doing this, they're together manipulating the system? what do y'all think? Drop your answers in the chat. Do you think they're doing this to manipulate the trial system, or are they legitimately having issues and they don't trust each other anymore and they're just trying to mess with each other's good trial chances? Had a couple of weeks of lovely warm. Now it's cold again. That's kind of how it is in Tennessee, believe it or not. Our weather goes from tornadoes to rainy to cold to warm again, back to tornadoes, then snow. It's just all over the place. But I'd be interested to know what you guys think about the Vallow Daybill situation. And of course, the trial that everybody's talking about universally, and that's Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. I don't know how much interest there is in that trial. I agree with you. I think she does want to get her side out first. But I do believe there's probably some manipulation there as well. She played the speedy trial card, and no, I think there's definitely trouble in paradise. I do as well. I do as well. And yes, I also think they're trying to manipulate the system. So maybe there is trouble in paradise and they're trying to manipulate the system as well. And Ron, I think it's so funny. You know, we did that romance novel that he wrote, or that romance story. It wasn't really a novel. And just all the things that he was saying about her, and now this. It's just, oh, how the mighty have fallen when it comes to that. Absolutely. Now, as far as Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, this goes back a long time, but we do know that, of course, Johnny Depp was fired from or lost his contract with Pirates of the Caribbean due to her allegations of abuse, and now it's come out that it was may have been her doing the abuse. Lots of lots of supporting documentation there for sure. And she did very radical things to him, not only like taking advantage of him financially, but physically punching him, slapping him, and caught on recording admitting that she did it. And even so much as taking a poo on his side of the bed. I mean, the only person cringier than Lori Vallow Daybell is Amber Heard, in my opinion. So I've been watching that trial with a whole lot of interest. And what's going on? It's not criminal. It's a civil trial. But yeah, it's very interesting to watch for sure. Yes, that romance story was very cringy. It's not even at the level of fan fiction. It's so cringy. Yes, and there's not enough communication between them. I don't know if they're even allowed to communicate. I wonder. That's not something I've ever investigated. I'm pretty sure that you can't keep a married couple from communicating, but I also know that there's probably rules as to what can be said and not said, since they're both accused of the same crime when it comes to JJ and Tylee. So it just makes me wonder how they're even allowed to communicate and how closely that's monitored. I like that. We should call her Amber Turd. That's funny. That's funny. So those are the two main cases that everyone's pretty much talking about. We're all waiting for more information on. But there is a case that happened last month in Orlando that I think will end up being both a criminal and civil trial, and that is the death of a 14-year-old at the Icon Amusement Park in Orlando when he did their free fall. That was a 438-foot free fall, and he was improperly boarded because he was way over the weight limit. This can also tie into our discussions about proper health and nutrition. But he died. He fell out of the safety harness, fell over 400 feet, and did not survive his injury. So I'm going to share the story with you right now, and I think you'll find it interesting. So here is a local Orlando station. I've been following this very closely since it happened, but this is 14-year-old Tyree Sampson. I believe he was from Michigan. He and a group of friends were visiting the Icon amusement park near Disney World in Orlando. They are not affiliated with the Disney company. But basically, he was wanting to ride the free fall. And according to the family and friends that were with him, as you can see, he's a big boy. He's a big boy. He's over 6 foot, but he's also over 350 pounds. And he had been denied access on any of the more, what you would call more aggressive rides, like roller coasters, free falls, shot puts, all of that stuff all day because he was over the weight requirements. However, he wanted to find one that he could ride. And eventually that evening, later on, about 11 p.m., he was able to find the free fall, which is pictured here, which is 438 feet high. He found someone that would let him on the ride. And according to people that were there, that the harness did fit, but the final clicking, and there is video, which I can't show here because of YouTube terms of service, because it does show the fall. But the belt was never clicked. You actually hear teenagers that were sitting next to him in the free fall, and this thing can accommodate, I believe, 33 passengers at one time. It lifts you up and then drops you down at 70 miles per hour. So if you can imagine the G-forces. They were talking about how the clickety thing didn't click, meaning that the safety bar, the safety harness did not click into place where he was concerned. Even though after he dropped, and he dropped as the thing was coming back down, he fell out. But when the thing came to rest, the safety bar was still intact. Like he would have been sitting here. The safety bar was in this position. So the park is alleging that they did everything they could, but when independent counsel has hired consultants, amusement park consultants, to investigate this case, it's what they're saying is because he was so far over the weight limit, according to the manufacturer of this free fall, and they're the same ones that manufacture the amusement park rides at Dollywood. The weight limit was 284 pounds. Now he was well over 300. So you do the math. There's about a 50 to 60 pound discrepancy there. They said it wouldn't matter if this bar was still attached because it was not properly engaged. And then they showed kind of a picture of how the bar on a larger person, instead of going flat, would kind of stick out, and how it was not properly engaged. And there's also a loophole in Florida state law, which says if the manufacturer does not require a weight limit to be posted, that you don't necessarily have to. And from what everybody was saying, there was no weight limit posted, even though the manufacturer said the weight limit was 284 pounds. So of course, the teenage or 20-something-year-old carny that was, and nothing wrong with being a carny, I worked at a carnival myself, let him on. So because that wasn't posted, there's now kind of a discrepancy about who's at fault. Is it the ride operator, the park, or is it the manufacturer? And so this is going to turn into probably a civil and a criminal case, because I think somebody's going to go down for involuntary manslaughter when it comes to that. So what do y'all think? That, to me, is one of the most tragic cases that I've seen in a long time. A young 14-year-old lost his life because the park did not properly post weight restrictions on the ride, and the young attendant was not trained to know that this guy is just too big to ride the ride. And it has nothing to do with fat shaming or anything like that. I'm a big woman. I was a big teenager. I was a big 20-something. When I went to amusement parks, I was turned away from rides from being too big as well. So it's a safety thing. And I do believe that somebody's going to be held accountable for that. And the reason I say that is because there was another case that happened in 2013 that was just finally settled in 2019 of a young 10-year-old boy that was killed in Kansas on a water slide. I'm going to share this with you as well. So the young boy, who was actually the son of a Kansas state senator, his name was Caleb Schwab. He was 10 years old. This was the 𝐉𝐸𝐻 water slide. Now, this is a water slide. This is not a roller coaster. Look how many stories this thing is. And you slide on a raft down this, and it's supposed to be a wild ride. But this was at the Schlitterbahn amusement park in Kansas City, Kansas. And in 2013, all the local politicians were invited to try out the park, try out this 𝐉𝐸𝐻, which in German means insanity. And basically what had happened was that Caleb and his brother were going to ride the slide, but they had to be separated because they didn't weigh enough to be in the same raft. So evidently there was a weight limit, again, on this raft. You had to be the heavier the better, because when it hit this first drop, it had there used to be coverings over this with netting. And when it hits this maximum velocity in tests that the park had ran prior to opening it, this was literally right after it opened, just a couple of weeks. And they built this because they wanted to get on the travel network for their most dangerous rides or most thrilling rides. And here it would actually launch rafts that were underneath this weight limit up, and people could easily be struck by the bars that held the netting. And that's exactly what happened. They split up the two boys. They put them in rafts with adults they did not know, and they sent them down. And unfortunately, he was catapulted, and his head struck one of the bars, and his neck was snapped instantly. And so there was both a civil suit and a criminal charges filed against Schlitterbahn, the amusement park ride, the owner of the amusement park, and the ride manufacturer. But in 2019, those were dismissed by a judge that said that the jury was swayed because they were showed film from the Travel Channel. It was actually kind of a technicality that got the owner of the amusement park off of the manslaughter charges. But there was definitely, that was definitely the result of some poor planning, some poor they did not adequately vet people for that ride. That was definitely something I think should have been found guilty. They did settle this civil suit, but there's definitely some shenanigans there. But he did get off on a technicality. Now, I think that this current case with Sampson is going to be the same thing, that we're going to get into a bunch of, hot potato between the manufacturer and the park about who is really responsible for this. Yes, and I believe, absolutely. Why did that family take him to amusement park unless they didn't know how much he weighed? I suspect that's probably the reason, that they didn't know how much he weighed. I mean, I got over 300 pounds twice in my life, and I didn't know what I weighed because I refused to weigh myself. But it was pretty obvious that I was over the weight limit, and I think that's. But at amusement park, there's games, there's merry-go-rounds, there's bumper cars, slower rides that he would have been just fine if he could have fit into them. They would have been fine. Yes, it is tragic, Flame. Somebody was just trying to have fun, and then because of neglect, I think this is going to probably lead to new regulations about the age of people that can operate rides at amusement parks. I think right now it's 18 in Florida, but I'm pretty sure this is probably going to lead to some you having to be 21, perhaps even older, to operate those rides. Yes, it did shut down. It has been shut down ever since. Both of them, in both cases, the 𝐷𝐸𝐺 was disassembled after Caleb's death, and the amusement park in Orlando has closed the ride until pending the investigation. Madeline McCann. You know, I've seen a lot of things, Angela, floating around about that case, but I don't know what to believe and what not to believe. Can anybody tell me what they've heard? I've heard that they found out the parents did it. I've heard it's still inconclusive. And that's like the JonBenet case. There's so much stuff out there that's not accurate, that's not factual. So it's really hard to get to the heart of it. So if anybody could enlighten me, because I've read a lot about it, but I don't know who to trust. That's the thing. It's like a lot of those cases, you know, like anybody, you know, a lot of the really famous cases that get a lot of the coverage. There's always, especially when children are involved, there's a whole lot of things. But as far as that case goes, I can't say that I really have a theory on it. I do think, in a way, the parents were very, very neglectful. Now, leaving 2 children under the age of 6 alone in an apartment in a resort area with a lot of people that are transient coming in and out. When I say transient, I don't mean like transient, you know, as a derogatory term. I mean just people coming in and out. I think that's very neglectful, and not even locking the door. You know, come on. I mean, that's just asking for trouble. So I do think they were guilty in the way that they were neglectful. Now, will I actually say they had something to do with it? No, I don't want to believe that, and I hope that that's not the case. Yes, Josh Duggar's sentence is coming up. I believe he's facing a max of 20 years and $250,000 in fines. And I do believe they're probably going to throw the book at him. I hope they throw the book at him. I heard that. I do know that he is the one member of the family that has almost completely been exonerated for that. My theory on that case has always been that it was the mom. At least in the way that if she didn't do it, she was definitely covering for other people in the family. And the other person in the family has been known to sue people that come right out and say that. So I'm not going to say that, but I think you know what you're picking up what I'm trying to put down here. I do believe that it was a massive cover up. And I do honestly believe that John was probably the only one in the family that was clueless about what was going on. So there's so many theories about what happened to Maddie. I will always blame the parent. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm Gen X. I was a latchkey kid. I was totally a latchkey kid. I came home to an empty house every day after school. And my parents trusted me to stay in the house or stay in the yard or only go over to a friend's house or something like that. You know, we used to walk up and down the neighborhood streets. I mean, it was a different time. And it makes me sound so old to say that, but it was a different time. But I didn't start coming home and staying by myself till I was at least 6th grade, which that was 11, maybe 12. You know, my mother would never have left me alone in a resort, like basically an Airbnb, while she went off to have drinks with her friends. She would never have done that. Left me under the age of 6 in that. No, we're talking about basically 2 toddlers. No, she would never have done that. And yes, I absolutely believe and agree with you, Flame Lily. They are partially responsible for what happened to their daughter. And I also did hear about it was probably the German guy. But like I said, it's the same thing. Until it's actually proven, I I don't want to say, because there were several possible assailants and perpetrators thrown around in the JonBenet case, including a local man that played Santa Claus every year. So that was later disproven. So I don't want to accuse anybody. I try to wait for the, and I know that makes me one of the most boring true crime channels out there, because I do try to wait for the facts, but I also don't want to get sued because people are quite litigious. Yep. A lot of us that grew up in that 60s, 70s, 80s, early 90s were latchkey kids. I'm sure there's a lot of reasons for that. I know that the divorce rate really skyrocketed in the 70s and 80s, and I'm sure that had a lot to do with it. But yeah. Great question, Angela. What are my thoughts on Summer Wells? I believe she disappeared. I believe she was taken from the home, at least from the yard surrounding the home. Now that home was way out there. And if you've ever watched my videos on it, that area is a very impoverished area, but it's also a hotbed of what they call the highway between Atlanta and other places in the north, and places in the Northeast where a lot of trafficking takes place. I mean, it was about 2 weeks ago that a trafficking house was busted in Nashville. Like, I could drive there in 30 minutes where they busted it. It was women and children. So I sadly believe if she's alive, she's in a very bad situation. And I don't want to think about that, but I think she was taken. I mean, her parents are weird AF. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think they had anything to do with it, other than the fact maybe they should have watched her more closely. But I really think she's in a very bad situation if she's alive. Otherwise, I think she was taken by a predator, and yeah. I don't even like to think about it. I don't know if we'll ever know what happened to that child. I know they're still looking for her, but I don't think they'll. I mean, I've read statistics that if you don't find the child within the first 48 to 72 hours are crucial. If you don't find them, the chances of finding them alive go to like practically nothing. Hey Sasquatch, how are you, buddy? My cousin lives 10 miles where she went missing. Yep. Now, Angela, has your cousin had any thoughts on it? What do they think? What's the general mood in the area? That's a county near Knoxville in extreme eastern Tennessee. So it's like I said, it's a pretty impoverished area. Not a whole lot of opportunities, and unfortunately, the traffickers that come out of Atlanta that go through Tennessee, they tend to prey on families that are quite impoverished. They tend to prey on these children of those families, because those families don't have the resources to hire private investigators and things. Most of the major trafficking is usually solved by means of somebody that has resources to dump into it. As bad as it sounds, it's always somebody with enough money to hire a private investigator or cares to sleuth themselves and gives the police information that leads to those people being captured. It's never just a straight up police investigation. And I'm not knocking law enforcement. I'm just saying that it's usually people uh, that have resources that can push that fight. Absolutely. And so they prey on people without those resources. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some sickos out there. There are some absolute sickos out there. If you have a very strong stomach, check out a Serbian film. That's the actual name of the movie, a Serbian film. Uh, it addresses that very same situation. And there are a lot of sick people out there. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely, Flame. They have a whole lot of responsibility in that. Hey, good girl. Yep, I do believe someone took her, either for nefarious deed. Well, anything like that's a nefarious deed, but either she's no longer living or she's in a very bad situation. That's okay, Ron. You take care and thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for coming. I've got I've got two great videos planned for next week. I'm already working on them. One I think is going to is gonna it's kind of a fun diversion. It's not really fun. It's still bloody and gory, but it is a diversion from human human death that we normally look at on this channel. It is dark history though, but it deals with a pride a coalition. It's not really a pride if you want to use proper terminology of male lions on the Serengeti that basically would rampage other prides and kill all the cubs, kill the males, chase the males off, and they basically dominated 100 miles of African land in South Africa. And they're called the Mongoose 6, and it's actually like you will never look at the Lion King again the same way again after you watch this video. So just warning you about that. It's going to be kind of a unusual little version of dark history. And I've also got my video on the bad vegan coming, as well as my comparison of both the real case and the current Netflix docuseries on it. Have you seen the new Playboy? No, I haven't. Is it about Hef? Is it about Hef in general, or just about the whole Playboy phenomenon? I also have not gotten through something about Pam. I'm finishing up the Netflix Bad Vegan series, and then I've got to. I'm going to watch something about Pam, and there's also the girl from Plainville, the story of the girl Michelle Carter who was accused of leading her friend Conrad into suicide. So I'm going to watch that and probably do a review of that as well as a comparison to the real case if you guys would like. But it's going to take me a while to get through that series. Wow. I'm not exactly surprised, but it's still disappointing. I always thought he was kind of laid back and cool, but doesn't really surprise me though. They always say the quickest way to ruin a hero is to meet one for you. Not that he was a hero, but the quickest way to ruin a celebrity is to actually meet them in real life and find out what they're all about. Unfortunately. Hey, Kat, I started it. I got through the first episode, and then I wanted to go back and finish the Bad Vegan series, so I'm going to move on. But Renee Zellweger, oh my God, it doesn't even look like her. It's like I've never seen her like that. And I have listened to the podcast, something about Pam, and that's yet another case that would never have been solved if it hadn't have been uh, for a private individual getting involved. That case was basically solved by that podcaster, much like uh, Michelle McNamara, Patton Oswalt's first wife, the one that wrote the book on Gone in the Dark, the one that wrote the book on the Golden State Killer. It was because of her that a true crime writer that case was actually broken. So that's just another case of a private individual taking matters into their own hands. I'm not talking about like being a going out and being a hurting people, but actually being able to break a case. So that's really all the cases that I had for this particular episode. If there's any video suggestions you would like to see me do in the future, please drop them in the chat or message me. My email address is on the channel. Shoot it to me. I'll be happy to put it on the list and move into it. But like I said, next week, Mongaloo 6, Bad Vegan, and the comparison to the Netflix series. And then I will move on to a couple other cases, but including the Michelle Carter case. So, and of course, I'll always keep you abreast of any cases that break, any updates, and especially the Vallow case and anything like that. And so with that being said, I hope you have a great weekend and a restful weekend, and that everybody is doing well. And until next time, everyone, keep doing crime.